No, it's, you know what it is. It's hard to run a brewery. You're in a highly regulated industry. There's so much you need to know and do, and I know that all of you just want to make beer, but somebody in your team has to file those pesky reports.
You are listening to the Capital Craft Podcast, brought to you by the San Diego Brewers Guild. I am your host, Eric Fowler.
My name is Jeff Fox with Beer Media Co.
Oh, and I'm Candace Moon, the
That's
craft
your
beer
turn.
attorney.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know last time you were here, we talked about trademarks. We talked about a lot of different things, and we were trying to get to regulatory compliance, and you said good luck. And as you predicted, we were unable to get to it. So today, we brought you back. We're going to talk about, the regulatory compliance, the licenses, ABC, all those kinds of wonderful things that breweries have to deal with. And so I'm really excited for this conversation, and maybe I'll learn something today.
Excellent.
Yeah, everyone's favorite part of operating a business, especially an alcohol-based business in California.
For sure.
So let's be honest, is California as terrible as everybody says it is to run a business that produces an alcoholic beverage?
People say that? That's because they haven't dealt with other states yet. No, California is actually pretty easy. We've got it really good here. I think the CCBA has had a lot to do with that. That we've got folks in Sacramento protecting our rights, but we can do a whole lot of more things than a whole lot of other people in other states.
Yeah.
That's the California Craft Beer Association.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Sorry, you'll have to stop me with the acronyms.
That's gonna be my job today, because I'm not gonna know most of them. So
Yeah, we were fortunate to have Lori Ajax from the CCBA down to the SDCBC, San Diego Craft Beer Con, in August to give a legislative update. And I completely agree. If you're not a member or unsure what they do, it's a great organization to support. And they are up in Sacramento advocating for the change and updating of some of those laws, and working with the ABC on how they're enforcing those laws as well. I think that's maybe where we can start is I think a lot of people think the ABC is coming up with these laws, right? What is the breakdown and distinction when it comes to, enforcement versus like actually owning and implementing changes in regulatory rules that cover breweries?
The ABC is basically just interpreting what our lawmakers have drafted, which unfortunately is not always the clearest document, nor is it necessarily consistent. So a lot of what we're dealing with is, so the ABC code, is written and over the years has had many changes to it by our legislators, which also keep it just like any law. You've got groups, lobbyists, people that are trying to bend their ears, and everyone has their own perspective and their own goals. So a lot of times something that brewers might want, wholesalers do not want brewers to have. So there's a lot of competing interests going on for, when the legislators are trying to amend or add privileges, or in some cases reduce privileges that we have. The ABC is just basically trying to follow what they are given in that act. And like I said, sometimes it's not clear. It's difficult to read. It's written by legislators who unfortunately may not be 100% familiar with the rest of the document. So there are inconsistencies sometimes when something is changed in one section and nobody's thought about this other clause in another section that
Isn't practical.
doesn't make sense with the change.
Directly butt heads sometimes. And they got to figure out which one overwrites and which one to follow and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And why a brewery can do something that a winery can't, or vice versa. Because, again, like if the wine lobby was out there pushing for it, they're not necessarily going to bring the brewers along for the ride, unfortunately. But so the ABC is working with what they've got.
Yeah. And so when you say privileges, as different examples would be the ability to brew cider under a type 23 or have music in your tap room or live trivia. Those are types of privileges that maybe you're referencing.
True. I was thinking more of like self-distribution, which is probably our biggest and best privilege
Sure.
that I know a lot of people probably take for granted just because in California we've had that right for so long. But yes, some of those other things are considered privileges. At the same time, though, the ABC is not the be-all, end-all. And some of those things, the police, depending on the location of your brewery or your tap room, the police are going to have some input in that as well. The zoning for your location may affect those things, and having to deal with the planning department and get a minor use permit, because one of the things that you're dealing with is a brewery with a tap room is really two different businesses. It's manufacturing and it's retail. And those two uses may not be set up to be allowed in the zone where you've gotten your manufacturing building. So you've got to get a minor use permit to allow for the retail, or vice versa. So there are a number of different agencies that could be at play, depending on what you're trying to do.
Would you mind running me through just kind of, I mean, as a layman, like just kind of the list of, what types of permits, licenses, all that kind of
That's
things?
a lot.
I know, but
maybe by the agencies that you would work with.
That.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'll do top down, because that's where it starts to get a little muddier, is when you get to the localities. So, to have a brewery, you need a federal brewer's notice from the TTB, the Tax and Trade Bureau. That's your federal license to brew beer. You'll need a state type 1 or type 23. Most people start with the type 23 because that's a lower volume, small beer manufacturer license. You need to register with the FDA. Basically, you just let them know you exist. There's no permit, no licensing. You need to register, and this is true, a lot of these are true of any business, but you need to register with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, CDTFA. And that's where you're going to pay your taxes, both your sales tax as well as your excise tax to the state. The reports that you have for TTB are all included at that level. What else on the state level? When you get to locality, that's where it starts to really be different by what city, what county you're in. So we recently had a client open in Vista, and there are a few permits that we weren't even aware of that Vista requires, because we generally, just my firm, we don't deal a lot with the local permits. We definitely don't deal with building permits, minor use permits. Those are a lot of things that contractors, architects will deal with. So like Dustin Hawk, who I know has been on the program, he deals with a lot of those things. Mainly because you don't need a lawyer to do it. A business license, things that, are, like I said, standard protocol for any business, that you're just going online and filling out a form. I'm trying to think. Oh, if you are, as a manufacturer or a seller of beer, so wholesalers, you have to register with Cal Recycles. And as of this year, not just beer, wine and spirits as well. So they're actually extremely backlogged trying to get all those people online. And those are, I think those are the big ones. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Like I said, when it comes to like having live music, or that's a permit, in Vista at least. And
That's
again, so there's some things that, until we come across it for the first time, we don't even know that there's necessarily a permit for it. So I'd say it's important, especially if you're starting out, or if you're existing and want to add some new type of things, just talk to your local economic, business department, planning department, and just ask the question, like, what do we need to do? If you're going to have a kitchen, then you got to deal with the health department. Or even if you're going to have pop-up food type situations, not a food truck, because that's all enclosed and has its own permits. But you can't just have a pop-up caterer without involving the health department to some extent.
The way people find craft beer has changed a lot the past 5 years. That's why we created Brewery DB, to help craft enthusiasts filter their search as they plan their next adventure. And to help breweries connect with these adventurers, we created Market My Brewery, Market My Brewery gives you full control over how people discover and see your products. You can market directly to the craft enthusiasts who are seeking great experiences without crowdsourced information or consumer ratings and reviews. We make it easy to update brand information, provide the key details people are searching for, and tell your brand story the way you want to tell it. Join Market My Brewery today for free and take control of your online presence.
Need labels fast? InTouch Labels ships orders in just 3 business days with competitive pricing for any order size. No quantity minimums and only a $25 minimum for small orders. Plus, there are no fees for SKU changes, rush orders, or minor artwork edits. We offer free file preparation for advanced designs. Our expert team is ready to help via email, phone, Zoom, or in person. And with our happiness guarantee, you can return your order for a full refund if you're not satisfied. Visit intouchlabels.com or give us a call at 800-370-2693 today and make your label ordering process easy.
When it comes to the different types of licenses, I know you mentioned the 23 and 1?
Yeah, the type 1 is for the big brewery, so
Yeah.
over 60,000 barrels produced a year, and under that is a type 23 in California. And actually, some states actually will have a third local license, which we don't, brewing license, which we don't have in California.
And then if they wanted to serve hard liquor in their tap rooms and things like that, that would be, I would guess, even a different license.
You would
Could be a
have
liquor
to
license
get a full spirits retail license, and then that starts to get interesting because there are only specific circumstances where you can overlap licenses, and you cannot overlap a retail license and a manufacturing license, but you can set them next to each other. So, and I haven't been there since it became Green Cheek, but I know that Bagby was a full service liquor restaurant, and that was a retail liquor license sitting next to the brewing license.
It's like you would sell yourself the beer to have on tap, essentially.
Yes.
Suite A and B.
Yes, exactly.
So
But you got to be careful there.
Yeah.
Because there are actually limited circumstances where you can sell the beer to yourself if you are a retailer. I don't know if we want to go into
That's
it's a whole other road and tangent.
Yeah. So what would it look like? For instance, if I wanted to open a brewery or a new tap room, because we're probably seeing that more often than somebody opening a new production space, where does one even start with that? When not how do they know what agencies they need to deal with, and how common is it for you to see somebody missing something when maybe they've been open for a couple of years and they approach you for your services and you're like, where have you been doing A, B, or C? And I didn't even know C existed.
It is very common that people miss things. And I think because when you're starting out and you're getting open for the first time, you're overwhelmed with information and with things you have to do. And there's just not enough time in the day. And you're so flooded with, I got to do this and this and this and this and this. And if no one ever says, and you have to do this. So like the FDA, a lot of people don't know they have to register with the FDA because the FDA doesn't reach out and tell you. And unless they hear it from somebody else, it's not like there's a roadmap written anywhere because it is so different by locality. Like you could have a national roadmap. What do you have to do on the national level? And hopefully the FDA would be in there. And I have a roadmap for California. But unless you have that, you may not know you need to register with the FDA. And sometimes people don't know about Cal Recycles until Cal Recycles reaches out and it's like, hey, we've seen you advertising, packaged beer, and yet we don't know about you.
Interesting. Is what happens if they find out that you don't have one of those licenses? Is there a fine? What's the process?
It's the best lawyer answer. It
I know.
depends. It really depends on the agency. So I will tell you too, up to this point, Cal Recycles has not, at least to my knowledge, filed penalties. They're like, okay, we caught you, or not caught you. I mean, the assumption is you didn't do it on purpose. So we figured this out. Let's get you caught up. Let's get you in the system. Let's file the back reports. You pay what you owe, and moving forward, we're good. CDTFA, not so forgiving. So you actually can't get your ABC license unless you have registered with CDTFA. And that actually holds up a lot of people, especially when you have people opening a second tap room. So what I think a lot of people don't realize is And when you're going to open another space, whether it's a tap room or a second brewery location, you want to treat that, it's just like you're starting from zero. I will say with a tap room, it's a lot easier because you're not brewing. So there's no brewing license from the feds needed. And then you get a different license from the ABC, which is called, basically most people, type 23 duplicate. And then kind of depending on what you're going to do there, like, are you going to have a kitchen? Because a lot of people will put a restaurant on a duplicate. So now you got to bring in the health department. So you're going to do the same kind of investigation you did when you opened your first brewery in the first place. But so here's the piece that trips a lot of people up. For every location that you have with a brewing license, or even a duplicate 23 where you're not brewing, you have to add that location to your existing CDTFA license, both for sales and use, so your seller's permit and selling to consumers, but also, even though a duplicate can't brew, because it's a duplicate 23, you have to register it as if it's another brewery location. And the reason I think people don't realize they need to do that, because it's a little nonsensical since they're not brewing, but that will hold up your ABC license.
Sure.
Speaking of that timeline, what is the timeline for going through this process? So and it depends. No, but
that
like
actually does not depend
Yeah,
as
that's-
much as, unfortunately.
that's because if you're trying to open another location, how much lead time? When should you get started on all this?
Okay, so this does not include any sort of like construction or permitting on that side, because that's actually takes longer. That holds up people infinitely more often than ABC license.
Okay.
Do not assume that you will get an ABC license, whether it's for a brand new brewery, a second location, a duplicate. No matter what, you should assume it will take 6 months. And no one wants to believe that, especially people who are in a transfer situation where you're buying someone else's brewery. They want out, you're going to take it over. The person selling is generally not happy that it's going to take 6 months for them to get their money.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with this right now, where we're right at about 5 months with the ABC, and the other side is like, this is taking so long. I'm like, I told you 5 months ago it would take 6 months.
We've heard a lot of complaints from brewery members about that problem when we're seeing a lot of breweries expand through other breweries selling or taproom selling. And there was a roundtable with representatives from the ABC with their legal counsel a couple months ago up here in Vista. And that was specifically was brought up. You know, we took a lot of time. We left money on the table because we couldn't open. And the answer that was given was that a lot of time the paper pushers in the positions that take those forms and requests are very literal people, and they are told to do a job one way, and we've all worked with these people. Usually they're in accounting or HR. But they're very by the book, and unfortunately that's the nature of it. But if it seems unreasonable, go above their head and reach out to their supervisor.
Always.
And it was like, just fix the damn problem. But
I think there's a lot of jobs out there where it's more a fear of doing something wrong than there is upside in doing it quickly, right?
Yeah,
it's like you lose your job if you process something you shouldn't.
But,
that's the kind of job.
But it was such a funny answer.
Yeah.
You know,
Just go
and
above
I
them.
hope people, if they're leaving money on the table, and they spent $750,000 of building a tap room, and then they can't open forever, and it just sits empty. And we see it with restaurants a lot too.
Yeah.
Well, I will say too, though, I mean, there are a lot of consultants out there who can help with that. We do a lot of assisting with licensing, and it does help to have someone who's been down this road before, because I would say the biggest benefit you're going to get, especially from us, and I just say this from what I've been dealing with recently, is we know when to push back. We know when, the ABC will ask for a form, and you don't need that form. No. And we can help kind of educate your ABC agent to some extent. And again, not just us. I mean, there's a lot of consultants out there, but having someone help you with that process can help you save some of the money. And we know when to push back, and we know when, but again, don't expect it to take less than 6 months. It's like,
Does it ever take longer than 6 months?
Oh, definitely. But it rarely takes less. I'll tell you where it takes less. If you're opening a brewery in the middle of nowhere and your local ABC office has like nothing going on, you will get it through a lot faster. But if you're in San Diego, San Francisco, LA, do not expect it to take less time.
Open brewery in Modesto. Got it. No, Modesto's got it's a pretty big city. But, what are some things that you would like to see more from breweries in terms of planning, documenting, setting expectations of timelines when it comes to working with government agencies, right? We all see those pain points and that it really weighs on businesses. What are some things that you would like to see breweries do to be proactive and get their ducks in a row before coming to you or coming to them directly?
I think really doing their due diligence and doing the research, looking into it. And just so you know, and I think everyone knows this, I do a free 1-hour consultation. So there are professionals in the industry out there who will talk to you and give you this information so that you can do your research and find out what you need to know. So you can know that it's going to take 6 months, so you can work that into your lease with your landlord. Maybe you pay lower rent on the front end and it's, you pay higher on the back end, that you kind of work through these issues so they're not actually turn into be issues. The Start a Brewery website, even if you're not opening your first location, opening a second location, you're starting from scratch again in a new area. And so, maybe what you didn't know the first time, there's a website called startabrewery.com with a lot of just free information of roadmaps and what you need to do and how to do it and, who to talk to.
Yeah, and you've got a great podcast on there as well, right?
Yes, that's right. We're on a kind of hiatus right now. But there's a whole first year. So actually it's great if you're planning. A lot of good information. And Eric actually was a guest on at least one.
Yeah. Crammed in a room at CBC or something. Yeah.
As someone, so I'm also happen to be running for city council here in Vista.
Ooh.
So I know, shameless plug, but as someone who's going to be representing a city and going to be, actually probably able to kind of have some effect on this, what would you tell someone like me or someone at ABC or any of those, how they can make the process smoother for breweries?
Ooh. Well, the thing is, they can only do what they can do. And I don't think it's from the top down. And I'm sure money is a big factor because the biggest thing that ABC could do would be to make an electronic application because everything's still paper. But of course they need the money to put that into place. It's, I don't know. I don't know what they could do. I know right now they have a lot of new people. That's, of course, slowing things down, too, because people are learning.
Have you ever utilized somebody like a city council member or somebody in local government to approach ABC and kind of push that way?
I have not, but I definitely have clients who've done that. Partly because I'm not sure that me as an attorney doing it is probably not as effective as an actual business in a politician's district coming to them with, here's my problem, here's what we need. And I have seen that make a difference.
Yes.
Now, whether it should or not, I don't know, because in some ways it's almost unfair to the other people who are just waiting in line patiently. But again, I think too, especially if you hit the 6-month mark and you're not there, that's when I think, it's time to reach out and see what's going on and what is the stumbling block and what is the problem, because there is a normal time frame this should happen in. And if things are holding you back, and I've seen this with applications of mine where things the ABC is asking for is almost impossible to provide them. And it's like, okay, we're at an impasse here. And I at least know, take it up to the district supervisor, take it up to Sacramento. But I think from a brewery's perspective is, talk to your local politicians, your state representatives, and kind of let them know where are the stumbling blocks, what's going on. Or if you don't know, just let them know there is a stumbling block. How can you help me?
And that's been my experience so far. Obviously, I'm not on council yet, so I can't do anything. So don't call me yet. Hopefully in January you can call me. But but I've seen current people who are in office be very giving. They want the businesses to open. They want them to be successful. They want them to be able to, come to their district and do and do awesome things. And so, I've seen a lot of willingness there at least. So hopefully that's true more than just Vista. But
Yeah. So if listeners or viewers want to learn more about you and your services, where can they find you?
Well, we have a website, craftbeerattorney.com. And one thing specifically, if you are interested in about compliance, is we have, it still makes me laugh, but we have a YouTube channel, and we do have posted a video, a webinar that we did on specifically California brewery compliance that goes through all the reports that you need to file, the agencies you need to register with. And it's not long enough to be able to go through how to do everything, but almost all those agencies have their own videos on how to file. CDTFA does I think a monthly video on how to file your sales and use tax report. So Calorie Cycles doesn't have as much, but again, they have a lot on their website. So there's a lot of information out there, basically so that you can find out all the things you need to do to be compliant. And actually, and I know we had this before, well, and I can offer it again, but if you sign up for our newsletter, we'll send you a free one sheet of compliance requirements.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of your newsletter, and your Instagram always has a lot of what different agencies have going on in terms of webinar resources and all that.
Yeah, I think the more you guys know, Sorry, that's NB. I stole that tagline.
Yeah, the more you know.
The more you know. No, it's what it is. It's hard to run a brewery. You're in a highly regulated industry. There's so much you need to know and do, and I know that all of you just want to make beer, but somebody in your team has to file those pesky reports, or if you want, you can hire someone to do it. I'm not recommending that, and it is a service we offer. Here's what I'll say: if you're not going to do it, I do highly recommend hiring someone to do it. But none of this is rocket science. It's just annoying, paperwork.
Well, thanks for joining us again. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can keep this as a recurring series over, the next couple seasons.
I'd be happy to. Happy to.
Well, you've been listening to the Capital of Craft podcast. Thank you for listening. And if you'd like to hear more, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and you can follow us at SD Brewers on Instagram, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.